Hey guys, tonight we're walking into the dim, damp alleyways of old cities, not the kind with neon signs or artisanal bakeries, but the kind where every shadow smells faintly of rot and every puddle has an origin you don't want to ask about. You're not here for romance or adventure. You're here for work. The kind of work no one remembers anymore. The kind of work that once kept entire cities functional, barely. Tonight you trail someone through a labyrinth of narrow back streets, past shuttered shops and squeaking carts to learn what it was like to take on some of history's most thankless roles. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this. Not from violence or war, but from tetanus, maybe a poorly timed sneeze, or just rat-related complications. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You follow the man at a distance. He wears a long coat that might have once been brown, but is now every shade of city grime. He hums as he walks a low, tuneless warble, and the sack slung over his shoulder occasionally wriggles. No, it's not lunch. It's rats. You've been recruited reluctantly as an assistant rat catcher. Congratulations. Your tools, a wooden club, a flickering lantern, and if you're lucky, a terrier that isn't afraid of things that bite back. The year is somewhere in the 17th century. The city is unnamed, but familiar tight lanes, soot-streaked brick, and the unmistakable sound of someone upstairs emptying a chamber pot out the window. You duck instinctively. You'll learn quickly. Your job is straightforward. Find rats, kill them, and get paid per tail. Some cities, like London, paid a bounty, 1 penny per tail, but don't get ambitious. Historians still argue whether that incentivized people to start breeding rats just to turn them in. That's not your business. Not yet. The man ahead, you're not sure if he ever told you, his name stops suddenly. You nearly bump into him. He gestures silently to a pile of refuse beside a bakery. Old dough, spoiled meat, something with feathers still attached. Prime rat territory. You hear it before you see it. A soft skittering like fingernails over paper. Then a squeak. Then dozens. The sack on the man's shoulder opens, and he tosses something to the ground, a piece of salted fish, maybe, and waits. The terrier lunges. It's chaos. The dog snaps and growls, chasing one rat into a barrel, another under your boot. You swing your club. Miss. Try again. This time you make contact. It's not glorious. It's a wet crunch and a squelch. You try not to think about it. The man grins, exposing a few teeth he still has. That's 1 tail for you, then, he says, handing you a small knife to remove it. You hesitate. The rat twitches. Still warm means you're doing it right. In the background, church bells toll the hour. Late. Not that it matters. Rats don't keep office hours. You move on. Another alley. Another pile. But this time he pulls out a cage. Inside a live rat. This one's special, he mutters. We're keeping him. You raise an eyebrow. See, he explains some folk believe rat blood wards off plague. Others think rat bones can be ground into charms. This little one's worth more alive than dead. You ask if that's true. Doesn't matter. He shrugs. They pay either way. You wonder if you're helping or hurting the public health situation. Probably both. But again, that's not your job. In the distance, a faint scream. Not yours, thankfully. Just city ambience. A drunken fight, maybe. Or someone discovering a rat in their bed. You'd be amazed how often that happens. By the end of the night, your sack is heavier, your boots are stickier, and you smell like something that lost a fight with a chimney. The terrier looks happier than you do. You count your tails 13. Not bad for a beginner. That's 13 pennies, assuming no one tries to short you, which they probably will. The man gives you a nod of approval. You'll last a week, he says. Maybe 2. You smile weakly, unsure if that's praise or a curse. As you walk home or wherever you're sleeping tonight, you reflect on the job. Rat catching was real essential even. Whole cities depended on these folks to manage vermin and disease. But they were also pariahs, often avoided, in daylight suspected of spreading what they claimed to cure. And that's the catch, isn't it? You do the dirtiest work, so others don't have to, and somehow you're the one people cross the street to avoid. You crawl into your cot sack of tails beside you and close your eyes to the sound of rats still scurrying in the walls. Tomorrow you'll be back out there, stick in hand, dog at your side, chasing down shadows with teeth. Sleep tight. The streets are quieter now, but not in a peaceful way. It's the kind of silence that hums with damp mildew and the occasional creak of a shutter swinging in the breeze. You keep walking your boots, still tacky from the rat-catching misadventure toward the edge of town, where the work gets smellier and the pay doesn't improve. You're shadowing a man who carries 2 wooden buckets and wears an expression that says, "I'm paid to do this, not to like it." His job title, Nightman. Though locals call him much worse. The stench hits before the job does. Sharp, earthy, sour, in a way your nostrils haven't evolved to handle. You consider turning back, but you don't, because in this city, jobs are scarce and everyone's too poor to be proud. Nightmen remove human waste, specifically from chamber pots and outdoor privies. If someone in the house above you relieves themselves in a bucket during the day, this man, your new boss temporarily, is the one who comes at night to haul it away. He stops beside a wooden hatch in the street. It's barely visible in the dim lantern light, but once lifted, reveals a stone chute connected to the latrine pits behind a row of homes. He sets the buckets down, grunts, and lowers a rope with a hook into the darkness. The bucket comes up slow, heavy, and sloshing. Your eyes water. You're told to hold your breath. You do. It doesn't help. The smell isn't just bad. It's personal. It clings to your clothes, your eyelashes, your soul. Still, you help transfer the contents into a larger barrel. Carefully. Spill too much, and you'll be wearing it home. Night soil, they call it. a polite term for what it is, and it's valuable, sort of. Farmers outside the city buy it to fertilize their crops. So, technically, you're part of the agricultural supply chain. Congratulations. Of course, not everyone waits for you to show up. Some households just dump their waste into the gutters or rivers. But laws are starting to change, especially in more civilized cities. London, for instance, tried to ban open dumping by the late 17th century. Historians still argue whether that was due to public health concerns or just because the smell offended the gentry at dinner. Your night continues bucket by bucket. Occasionally, someone yells from a window above Oi, "You missed number 18." The nightman ignores them. He has a route, and frankly, he's not paid enough to cater to every noble backside in the district. You stop beside a particularly large cesspit. It's been weeks since the last collection. You can tell. The cover creaks as it's pried open. Inside, it's a bubbling stew of the city's collective sins. You glance at your partner. He nods, as if to say, "We all descend eventually." And you do. Down a short ladder, into the pit. Not into the muck, thank heavens, but close enough to scrape the sides and hoist the worst of it into pails. It's warm. That's the detail that sticks with you. Warm and humming slightly like it's alive. A rat scurries past your boot. You sigh. Full circle. By the time you climb out, your gloves are soaked. Your shirt sticks to your back, and your thoughts have turned philosophical. Who decided this needed to be done? Who decided you needed to be the one to do it? Your partner wipes his brow and lights a small pipe. The smoke helps mask the scent barely. Not the worst night, he says. You disagree internally. Back at the city edge, you help him unload the barrels onto a larger cart. It's pulled by a tired horse and driven by another worker who will take it out of town, probably to a dumping site, or a farm, or the river if no one's watching. As you finish your shift, you notice the looks. People see you, then look away, like the work has stained you morally, not just physically. They don't want to be reminded that their clean bed sheets and polished shoes depend on people like you. You recall an old belief common in medieval cities that the smell of waste itself caused disease. Miasma theory, they called it. Bad air equals bad health. Germs weren't a concept yet. So, technically, by removing the filth, you're saving lives. But try explaining that to someone holding their nose as you pass. The fringe fact. In some cities, nightmen were legally barred from living within the town walls. Their job made them untouchables. They lived on the outskirts both literally and socially. You walk home as dawn begins to scratch at the rooftops. The city yawns and stretches. People start to open shutters, but no one thanks you. No one even makes eye contact. You pass a churchyard. A woman waters her garden with her back to you. The irony hits you. Some of that water probably passed through your buckets hours ago. The nightman waves at you from his corner. He'll be asleep soon. And tonight he'll do it all again. You might too. You take off your gloves. Your hands are red and pruny. But your conscience is oddly clear. Someone has to clean up the mess. You just hope someday someone remembers that you did. You thought you had scraped the bottom of the bucket with the nightman job. And then someone hands you a rope, a dull lantern, and says, "You're on cesspit duty tonight with the gong farmer." It's not as glamorous as it sounds. You meet him behind a tavern where the alley dips into a shadowy corner of the city. He's a broad man with a stoop wearing layers that seem less about warmth and more about protection, from what you're about to find out. The term gong doesn't mean a musical instrument here. It's medieval slang for human waste. A gong farmer is someone who digs out the privy pits once they've reached their, maximum potential. And tonight, that's your role too. The building you're assigned to is 3 stories tall, with a small timbered outhouse attached at the back like a sad, leaky appendix. The pit beneath it hasn't been emptied in months, maybe longer. The smell alone is ancient. It doesn't hit you all at once. It climbs you slowly, like a ghost that doesn't need permission to haunt. The gong farmer offers you a long wooden paddle, which he calls the sludge stick. You'd prefer a sword or an alibi, but no, tonight you descend. There's a narrow shaft beside the privy meant for exactly this task. You go first, dangling the lantern with one hand and clutching the rope with the other. Your boots sink into something that's not quite liquid, not quite solid. The consistency of porridge, but cursed. The light reveals it all. Layers of waste, old rags, bones probably not human, hopefully, and a child's lost toy, an eyeless doll smiling up at you from beneath the filth. You're not crying. Your eyes are just rebelling. Your job is to shovel the waste into buckets, haul them up via pulley, and dump them into barrels for transport. The farmer whistles while he works. You try to focus on the rhythm and not the squelching. You ask how long he's done this. 32 years, he replies. You ask if he's ever thought of doing something else. He shrugs. I like the quiet. He's not wrong. Down here, no one bothers you. Not even the rats, which apparently have standards. As you work, he tells you the old tales how gong farmers were paid surprisingly well for their services. In some cities, they earned more than tradesmen. Historians still argue whether this was due to high demand or danger pay. Maybe both. You try not to inhale. There's also the superstition. People believe that some cesspits were cursed, that the waste held not just bacteria, but bad spirits, especially from the homes of the recently deceased. There were even whispered rumors of cesspit drownings. You glance down. Suddenly you're very aware of your balance. You hear a creak overhead. A shutter opens. A voice yells, "You missed the south wall." The farmer ignores them. "That's tomorrow's job," he says. "Today we survive." You lose track of time. The lantern's flame flickers as you scoop and scrape and sling. The barrel fills. The scent becomes something beyond smell, like you've evolved a second nose that has already given up. The farmer pauses. Ever hear about the Great Explosion of 1666? You blink. Of course you haven't. London, a privy pit exploded under a tavern. Methane gas built up over time. Whole place went up like a bakery full of dynamite. Killed 2, singed 12, and all they wanted was ale. You glance around nervously. There's a lot of methane down here. You hope no one upstairs is using candles. Eventually, you climb out. Your clothes stick to you in ways you never thought fabric could. Your fingers are raw. Your soul might be too. But the pit is cleaner. The barrels are full, and the gong farmer gives you a nod of approval. You'll do, he says. You follow him to the edge of town, where the barrels are offloaded near a large trench. It's where the city's filth goes to die. You can see older layers pressed into earth like sedimentary sin. In a weird way, it's beautiful, like tree rings. If trees were made of sewage, you pass a group of children playing nearby. One holds her nose, another throws a rock at your boot and runs off laughing. You don't chase her. You couldn't catch her if you tried. That's the thing no one tells you about this job. It stays with you. Not just the smell, but the memory. Every crevice of your body hums with the feeling of digging through humanity's worst. But someone has to do it. And today that someone was you. You wash in a stream, barely then rest beneath a bridge. The moon rises. You think of the eyeless doll, still down there, probably smiling, still waiting for someone else to dig her up again. You close your eyes and breathe, not deeply, though. Tomorrow might be worse, but tonight at least you've climbed out. You wake up to the squelch of mud beneath your feet and the cool, slow creep of early morning fog brushing against your legs. But that's not the part that worries you. The part that worries you is that you're not wearing boots, because today you're a leech collector. You didn't choose this job. No one ever really chooses to walk barefoot into a stagnant marsh and let parasites latch onto their body for money. But here you are, trailing behind a woman who's already knee-deep in the muck, skirts tucked up, humming, like she's walking to market. The bog stretches out in front of you, shallow but endless, its surface rippling with suspicious movement. Frogs, maybe. Hopefully. Leech collectors, you learn quickly, are some of the most quietly intense people in the city's fringe workforce. They don't chase, don't shout, don't swing tools. They stand still. That's the job. Stand, wait, bleed. Your partner gestures for you to wade in. She carries a long pole, more for balance than defense. There's no fighting the leeches once they find you. They're faster than you'd think, and disturbingly quiet. You step in. The mud swallows your foot with a wet gulp. Your toes curl instinctively. The cold cuts through your skin like liquid glass. You try not to breathe too loudly. You try not to think about what's brushing against your ankle. Then comes the first bite. It's like a needle, but duller. A tug, more than a prick. Then another, and another. You look down. 5 black commas now cling to your calves, pulsing rhythmically. It's not painful, at least not yet. But it is intimate. Your partner chuckles. That's the good leg, she says. They like fresh ones. You ask why people do this, why she does this. Bloodletting, she replies simply. Doctors need leeches. Hospitals, barbers, rich folk with headaches. They'll pay a few pennies per dozen. You wonder if the pay is worth the infections, the dizziness, the constant anemia. Historians still argue whether leech collecting was primarily done by women and children because of availability or because they were considered expendable. You don't ask which category you fall into. Leeches were prized. In the 18th and 19th centuries, they were practically medical celebrities. France alone imported millions per year. A single hospital might use several thousand in a season. Some collectors bred them. Others, like you today, just walk into the water and hope. She explains how to remove them. Don't pull, just slide a fingernail under the sucker, unless you like bleeding for hours. Some collectors carry salt, which makes them drop off, but also kills the leech, ruining the sale. There's an art to it, a ritual, waiting, baiting, bleeding, plucking, like reverse fishing. You catch sight of a boy on the far end of the bog, smaller than you, pale and unblinking. He's swaying slightly, not from the current, there isn't one, but from exhaustion. You ask if he's okay. Been here since dawn, your partner says. Trying to afford bread. You want to wade over, help him. But your knees are locked in mud and the weight of the leeches makes each step feel like you're wearing slow-living socks. Eventually, your partner signals it's time. You slosh out of the marsh leeches, clinging in clusters around your knees and shins. She plucks them gently and places them into a glass jar filled with moss. You offer your leg for harvesting. She's careful, but still you hiss as one resists. That one's greedy, she says with a smile. You sit on a stone to dry, pressing a cloth to the worst bleeders. The wounds ooze for longer than you expect. Leeches inject an anticoagulant, something you didn't sign up for. In the town, you walk barefoot legs, wrapped toward the apothecary district. People give you a wide berth, not out of disgust, but pity. Everyone knows what you've been doing. It's not exactly subtle. You pass by a barber-surgeon shop. A painted sign shows a man being bled into a bowl, smiling like it's spa day. Inside, jars of leeches line the shelves. The man behind the counter counts your haul and frowns slightly. Some of these are thin. You resist the urge to remind him that you are too now. He gives you 6 pennies. Your partner gets 8. She doesn't argue. You don't either. You're too lightheaded to do math. Outside, she hands you a hunk of stale bread and says, "Eat before you faint." You do. It tastes like salt and swamp water, but it helps. That night you try to sleep, but keep waking to phantom bites. It's not just in your legs anymore. You feel them on your arms, your back, your neck. They're not there, but the itch lingers. The bleeding doesn't stop immediately. You've wrapped your shins in strips of linen, but they stain through. You lie in bed, watching the blood bloom through fabric like red flowers. A poor man's bouquet. You wonder if they'll scar. You wonder if the boy in the bog made it home. and you wonder how long you'll have to do this before your body stops offering anything the leeches want. But hey, at least now you know. Leeches don't just suck blood, they suck hope. The cemetery is quiet tonight. Too quiet. You follow a cart with squeaky wheels and an oil lantern swaying from the handle. The driver hums under his breath, not a cheerful tune, but something low and rhythmic, like it's meant to keep ghosts asleep. The cart is empty for now, but not for long. Tonight you're apprenticing as a resurrectionist, not the holy kind, the body-snatching kind. Technically, you're not breaking the law. You're just reinterpreting it. The law protects the property of the deceased, not the deceased themselves. Not yet, anyway. This is a legal gray area, and you're standing in it knee-deep in mud shovel in hand. Doctors need bodies. Medical students need practice. Anatomy schools are expanding, and graves are the unfortunate solution to both supply and demand. The man leading you, he calls himself Dre, is a professional. He wears gloves, not out of hygiene, but so he leaves no fingerprints. His coat has extra pockets. His lantern is hooded. He doesn't make eye contact with passers-by. He picks a spot, fresh earth, still soft. The grave of a man buried 2 nights ago. No time to rot, Dre mutters, nice and bendy still. You swallow your discomfort. You dig in silence, trading shifts. The first foot is easy. It's the next 3 that test your will. Dirt gets everywhere in your boots, under your nails, into your teeth. The lantern flickers with every jolt of the spade. The city looms in the distance, still glowing faintly from late-night taverns. By the time your shovel hits wood, your arms are numb. You clear the top of the coffin, careful not to splinter it. Dre pulls out a pry bar and levers the lid with practiced hands. The creak is long and reluctant, like the coffin itself is trying to hold on. Inside, a man wrapped in linens, eyes shut, mouth slightly open. It looks like he could speak at any moment. You glance away. Dre works quickly. He doesn't take clothes, only the body. Clothes count as theft. The body, still legally unclaimed. Keep the wrists tight, he says. Dead arms flop like wet towels. Together, you hoist the corpse into a canvas sack. The weight surprises you. He's heavier than he looks. Or maybe guilt adds pounds. The cart creaks as the body settles in. Dre tosses a layer of straw over him. You start filling the grave again. Not too tidy, just enough to fool a casual glance. It doesn't need to last forever, just until sunrise. As you push the last of the soil over the hollow, Dre tells you about Burke and Hare, the infamous duo from Edinburgh who skipped the digging part entirely and just started killing people. Sold 17 bodies to Dr. Knox before anyone noticed. Historians still argue whether the doctor knew. You suspect he did. Tonight you're not a murderer, just a recycler. You push the cart through side streets, past quiet houses and barking dogs. The city has no curfew, but it does have eyes, so you stay to the shadows. The medical college waits behind tall iron gates. Dre knocks 3 times quick. A window creaks open. A voice whispers, "Male full grown fresh as spring." Dre replies. A few coins change hands. The body disappears into a side door. No ceremony. No prayer. You wait. A man returns with 2 small pouches. Payment. Dre hands you one without a word. It's heavier than you expected. A few silver pieces, enough for bread, a drink, maybe even shoes. You don't celebrate. On the walk home, you ask Dre if he ever dreams of them. He snorts. They're dead, I'm not. That's the deal. You wonder if it's really that simple. But you don't ask again. You pass the cemetery on the way back. The grave you dug is invisible now, just another patch of quiet grass. But you know, you'll always know. Later, as you wash your hands, scrubbing until your knuckles sting you, notice a spot of dried mud in your hair. Or maybe it's something else. You stop scrubbing. In bed, you don't sleep right away. Your fingers twitch. You can still feel the weight of the body, the way it shifted, the faintest breath of decay lodged in your nose. You remember Dre's advice. Don't get sentimental. They're not using it anymore. You repeat it like a mantra. Still you flinch when the wind whistles like footsteps. And when the floorboards creak, you stare at the door longer than necessary. In the morning, the city will bury someone else. You might dig again, but tonight you lie still, trying not to imagine someone standing over your grave counting coins in the dark. The sun's just barely up, but the factory is already breathing steam and clanking metal like a living thing with indigestion. You wipe last night's sleep or guilt from your eyes and stumble through back alleys lined with brick walls and puddles of coal-black rainwater. But you're not heading inside the factory. Not today. Today you're a knocker-upper. No, not that kind. Get your mind out of the 21st century, back before alarm clocks were affordable or even reliable. People paid other people to wake them up. You lucky, you are one of those people. Your tools, a long pole, a pebble pouch, and the patience of a saint. Your territory is the mill worker's block. Rows of houses stacked like dominoes, each with foggy upper windows, and a tenant who must be awake at 4:30 a.m. sharp, or risk losing a day's wages. You're the human alarm system, the human guilt trip, really. You arrive early, as always. You have to be awake before your clients. The irony doesn't escape you. Who wakes the knocker-upper? No one. You just don't sleep deeply anymore. First stop, number 17. A single woman with a job in the weaver's room. You know this because she leaves you a halfpenny in a chipped mug by the doorstep. You take the coin, then use your cane, a long bamboo rod tipped with rubber, to tap gently, rhythmically on her upper window. Tap, 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 tap. It's a learned cadence, just enough to stir her, not the whole street. Eventually the curtain twitches. You nod and move on. Next, number 22, a factory foreman with a sour face and a pocket watch. That's always wrong. He insists you arrive 3 minutes earlier than everyone else. Precision matters, he once growled, holding a sausage roll in one hand and a scowl. in the other. You lob a small pebble at his window. It taps the glass just once. Any more and he yells. He always yells. You hear him mutter, and that's your cue. The street is quiet otherwise. Just your steps, your taps, and the soft whistle of wind between tenement walls. You know this rhythm by heart. You even hum a little tune to keep pace. There's competition, of course. Some knocker-uppers use pea shooters. Others, long fishing rods. Some even bang on pipes connected to bedroom walls. Historians still argue whether certain districts preferred one method over another, or if it all came down to noise tolerance and the thickness of the windows. You pass a fellow knocker-upper heading in the opposite direction. He's older, with a limp, and a face like dried leather. He raises his cane in greeting. You nod. No words. It's too early for words. You stop at number 36, home to a family of 6. You tap twice on the window. Wait. Then 3 quick raps below on the door frame. Their eldest son mimics your knocks during the day, which annoys the neighbors. You consider it flattery. One woman once asked if you offered wake-up reminders too. Knock again in 5 minutes, just in case. You declined. That's a slippery slope toward butlerhood. Some of your clients can't afford much. They leave you bread crusts or soup bones instead of coins. You accept them anyway. You're not in this for the fortune, just the routine. The city changes fast, but waking up, that's eternal. You remember the story of Mary Smith, an actual knocker-upper from East London. She used a pea shooter to hit second-story windows and never missed. People still talk about her aim. Legend says she once woke 5 streets with a single pea. Probably untrue, but charming. You check your pocket watch, cracked, but functional. Almost 5 a.m. The factory whistle howls like a dying beast, and you watch the neighborhood stir. Curtains part, doors open, boots scuff the cobblestones. The city comes alive, bleary-eyed and shivering. You've done your job, but unlike others, you don't get to go home and sleep. You have a second route on the other side of town. Railway workers, coal loaders, and one retired officer who still insists on waking at dawn despite having nowhere to be. He says it keeps the devil out, someone once whispered. You knock his window with reverence. The strangest part, you've started knowing people without ever meeting them. You recognize patterns. Who leaves the curtain open? Just a crack. Who's late, pulling it back? Who's stopped altogether? One man, number 44, hasn't answered in 3 days. You knock anyway. Out of habit. Out of hope. You wonder if he's sick. Or gone. Or just done. There's no job security here. When alarm clocks finally become reliable and cheap, you'll be obsolete. But for now, you matter. In a small, quiet way. The factories won't wait. The trains won't hold. The bread won't bake itself. You are the invisible thread, tying a city's heartbeat to its workers' feet. By the time the sun rises fully, you've walked 5 miles and knocked on 83 windows. Your shoulder aches. Your throat is dry. But there's a sort of peace in this. You were here before anyone else. You made the city start, and no one will ever know. Your voice is hoarse by mid-morning, not from yelling, but from projecting, as the town crier called it. He handed you a bell, a scroll, and exactly 0 instructions. Figure it out, he muttered, before limping off toward the tavern. Everyone else does. So now, here you are standing on a wooden crate in the center of a cobbled square, wearing a coat 2 sizes too large and trying not to be trampled by a runaway goose. It's market day. There's shouting, arguing, bartering, and one man definitely trying to sell turnips that are actually apples with dirt on them. You raise the bell and give it a firm ring. Heads turn. Conversations pause. A fishmonger sneezes, and then you shout, "Hear ye, hear ye! All residents of Dockside Ward, be advised the water pump on Lily Lane has been declared unfit for drinking. Those caught bathing in it will be fined." A woman gasps. A child claps. Someone throws a piece of bread. You're not sure if it's a compliment. You read from your scroll. Today's announcements include the birth of a royal cousin no one has ever heard of, the hanging of a man who stole 3 ducks and a tambourine, a new shipment of soap arriving at Turner's General Goods. You try to inject emotion into each sentence. Majesty for the birth, somber gravitas for the hanging, genuine excitement for the soap. People love soap. Being a town crier is less about volume and more about presence. You are the voice of the city for those who can't read or just prefer a dramatic flair with their news. You move through districts, ringing and announcing. Some areas clap politely, others heckle. A group of children starts following you, repeating every 4th word. You try to ignore them. They try to steal your bell. You learn quickly that timing matters. Cry too soon, and no one's awake. Too late, and everyone's already heard the gossip from the baker. One woman stops you mid-announcement. Did they say which man was hanged? Was it Harold with the dog? You double-check. Says here, Harold, son of Henry, age 32. She frowns. Could be either. Both steal tambourines. You move on. There's a certain power to your voice now. You test it, turning small news into grand declarations. Mrs. Clay's goat has returned from exile, earns actual cheers. That goat bit 3 people last month and somehow became a folk hero. You try not to let it go to your head. Back in the day, town criers were essential. No printing press, no problem. You are the press. You announce wars, peace treaties, market prices, lost items, church times, and the occasional scandal involving unlicensed cheese. Historians still argue whether town criers were respected or just tolerated like walking bulletin boards. You're beginning to understand why. You pass by the Guildhall. A stern man in robes hands you a sealed note. Read it once, he says, then vanishes behind a door with a very aggressive doorknob. You open it. It's a tax decree. You groan internally. You step onto another crate, this one wobbly. The square hushes expectant. By decree of the council, the tax on brewing shall increase by 2 pence per barrel, effective immediately. The silence after is tense. A brewer hurls a cabbage. A second cabbage follows. You duck. You retreat. Sometimes the messenger gets blamed, especially when the message involves fewer pints. Still, not all days are cabbage heavy. You also deliver lost pet notices. One particularly memorable moment involved announcing the disappearance of a one-eyed parrot who only spoke Latin curses. When found, it insulted everyone involved, including the mayor. You develop a rhythm, 5 cries per hour, 3 miles walked per day, and exactly 1 break, where you sit by the river and practice tongue twisters. Royal rafts rarely row rugged rapids becomes your personal anthem. Your bell becomes a character of its own. You name it, clang. You polish it, nightly. When it cracks slightly, you feel it like a cracked tooth. You hear rumors that printed pamphlets are becoming popular. Some towns even post news on walls now, quietly, without performance. It feels wrong. Still, the scrolls keep coming. The announcements keep needing a voice. Sometimes you add flair gestures, pauses, the occasional dramatic gasp. People notice. Some begin tipping you, others begin expecting you. You become part of the city's fabric, as regular as the market stalls, as loud as the morning carts, as steady as gossip. At day's end, your voice is a rasp. You ring clang one last time, give a final God save the Queen, and descend your crate. A child tugs your coat. Are you going to cry tomorrow too? You nod. Every day. She beams. I like your goat voice. You go home with aching feet and a full pouch of coins, turnips, and 1 note someone tucked into your coat that simply reads, "You're the only news I trust." You smile at that. You're not a hero, not even a journalist, but in a city that forgets fast and listens rarely, sometimes a loud voice and a bell are all it takes to matter. You're not entirely sure why you're at a funeral for someone you've never met. There's a crowd gathered in the candlelit room. Plates of bread and cold meats line a side table, untouched. The air is heavy, not just with mourning, but with something else. Expectation, maybe. You scan the faces, solemn, tear-stained, vaguely suspicious. And then someone nudges you toward the table. "Time to eat," they whisper. You look at the plate in front of you, a simple round of bread placed carefully on a cloth-covered chest. You hesitate. But this is your job now. You're a sin eater. No, that doesn't mean you're about to be struck by lightning, but it is weird and kind of spooky. Sin eaters were a real thing. When someone died, especially in poorer or rural communities, it was believed that their soul still carried the burden of unconfessed sins, and those sins could linger, haunt even unless they were removed. Enter you, the designated sin sponge. Your job: eat the food that's been blessed by its proximity to the body. Bread, usually. Sometimes beer or salt. The idea is that by consuming it, you absorb the sins of the departed, letting them pass on clean. That's right. You're basically the spiritual equivalent of a kitchen towel. You pick up the bread and take a bite. It's dry, a bit stale, tastes like guilt. Everyone stares, waiting for some sign that the transfer has happened. You don't feel different. Maybe a little bloated. An old man in the corner nods. There, it's done. You glance at the corpse, eyes closed, mouth slightly ajar. Peaceful. Cleaner now. Who knows? They hand you a coin. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes just food. Historians still argue whether sin-eating was a genuine religious rite or a superstitious ritual that let grieving families sleep better. Either way, you're the final step before the afterlife. A spiritual janitor. You don't ask how many sins you've eaten so far. You're not keeping track. You don't want to know. After the crowd disperses, you're asked to go again. Another home, another passing, another plate of heavy bread. This time there's salt too. Fancy. Some towns have their regular sin eaters. You're becoming one of them. People know your name now, but they say it quietly. No one wants to make too much eye contact with someone who carries everyone else's regrets. You walk the streets, and people cross themselves. Children stare. A priest once muttered something under his breath as you passed. You're not entirely welcome, but you're needed, like a storm drain. One woman asks you to sin-eat for her husband before he dies. He's unconscious, never confessed. Could you maybe get ahead of it? You say no. There are rules. Not clear rules, but instinctive ones. You don't want to end up eating sins that haven't even happened yet. That's how curses start. Back at your tiny rented room, you look at your collection of coins, small tarnished things, sin money. You wonder if you should spend them or bury them. Some nights you think you can feel the sins, not specific ones, just a weight, like carrying too many coats. Most of them are probably just little things, lies, grudges, a stolen pie. But one night, after a particularly long funeral, you have a dream. You're in a room full of doors, and behind each one, a whisper. You can't make out the words, but you know they belong to the people you've eaten for. You wake up hungry, always hungry. They start asking you to say things now, short prayers mostly, not religious ones, just comforting phrases. Let the burden pass. May the slate be clean. He goes with no shadow, words like that. You say them in a calm, even voice. It's not for the dead. It's for the living. And it works. You see it in their eyes. Relief. Release. Like they've handed off a box they didn't want to carry. You've become part of the ritual. Eventually, someone builds a wooden stool, just for you. It sits at the back of the room during every wake. Reserved, untouched. You sit there now, bread in hand, and wonder, what happens to your sins? You're doing a service, yes, but you're also a kind of landfill for morality. Does it weigh on your soul? Or are you just a middleman, like a mail carrier for spiritual mail? No one wants. Some say sin eaters were eventually banned by the church. Others say they faded away when belief changed. People preferred absolution through confession, not through a man with a mouthful of stale bread. But you're still here, still chewing. In one town, they start calling you the quiet priest. You don't correct them. It sounds better than sin sponge. One woman cries when you finish her husband's rite. She hugs you. No one has done that before. You don't know what to do with your hands. You return home that night and take the bread crust she gave you still warm and place it on your windowsill, just in case the sins want to leave on their own. You watch the street below. The city is noisy again. Bells ring. Rats scatter. A baby cries. But for now the room is still, the air heavy, the bread uneaten, and the weight, you carry it quietly. The mill is alive again. It hums. It groans. It rattles like an enormous iron animal that's never truly asleep, just waiting for the next poor soul to step inside and feed it. Today, that's you. You've been assigned to the spinning floor, tucked between the heat of the boilers and the constant eardrum-destroying roar of machines. Specifically, you're assisting a mule spinner, a title that sounds vaguely noble until you realize what it actually involves. Walking back and forth beside a 100-foot-long piece of machinery for 12 hours, keeping your fingers just close enough not to lose them. The mule, it's short for spinning mule, not the animal, though you'll feel like one soon enough, is a monstrous hybrid of 18th century engineering. It draws out cotton thread, stretches, it spins it, and winds it onto bobbins. Your job: make sure the thread doesn't break, the spindles don't jam, and the machine doesn't eat you. Easy. The actual spinner, a man named Horace, with arms like iron railings and a permanent coating of dust in his eyebrows, doesn't say much. He hands you a comb and a rag. Keep it clean. Keep it smooth. Don't talk too much. The first hour is all noise, a kind of industrial lullaby that shakes your ribs. You nod, like you understand, but truthfully, you're overwhelmed. Between the clacking hissing and occasional explosive snap of a snapped thread, it's like working inside a giant musical instrument designed by someone with a grudge against ears. Horace glides along the frame with mechanical precision eyes scanning every spindle, hands darting in and out like a magician pulling endless rabbits. You try to mimic his steps. After 20 minutes, your calves are burning and you've snagged your sleeve in the thread twice. You'll get it, he grunts, or you'll bleed. Both work. Some context. This is the late 18th century. Mills like this one popped up everywhere after the Industrial Revolution took hold. Child labor was common. Mule spinners, especially those managing multiple frames, were considered skilled workers, well paid compared to other factory jobs. But they were also replaceable, especially if their fingers got caught. Historians still argue whether mule spinning was the most dangerous job on the factory floor or just the one that looked the most exhausting. Either way, it was brutal. You step wrong once, just once. A pulley jerks to a stop. Thread flies. You hear the snap before you see the result. One end of the broken line whips across your knuckles like a scolding ruler. Horace winces. You'll want to wrap that. You do with the rag he gave you. It soaks through quickly. You don't complain. During the lunch break, which is neither lunch nor much of a break, you find a shadowy corner near a coal chute. Horace offers you a tin of meat paste and stale bread. Back used to hurt, he says. Now it just doesn't feel anything. That's when you know you've settled in. You ask how long he has done this. He shrugs. Since I was small enough to walk under the frames. You ask why he never left. He shrugs again. Where would I go? You don't have a good answer. Back on the floor, the afternoon passes in a blur of bobbins and steam. You learn to sense when the machine is about to catch. You develop a sixth sense for when a thread is about to break something in the pitch of the spinning or the tension in the air. The mill owner walks by once. He's wearing clean gloves. He nods at Horace. Doesn't see you. You're not surprised. By the end of your shift, your hands are raw, your shoulders ache, and your head rings like a cracked bell, but you've made it. You didn't faint. You didn't bleed out. You even helped save a line from snapping completely. Horace grunts in approval. Tomorrow's the hard part. You almost laugh. Almost. As you walk home through soot-streaked streets, the sounds of the mule follow you. They're still in your ears, in your chest. Even the silence now seems to tick and hum. At night, your dreams are mechanical. Endless rows of spindles stretching into the dark, threads tightening like nooses. A rhythm you can't escape. You wake up to the sound of steam. There's no steam. It's just your breath in the cold room. But still, you look at your hands, calloused, a little bloody, but still there. Tomorrow you'll do it again. Walk the mule, chase thread, listen for the whisper of disaster in every whir. You'll become part of the machine eventually, and no one will even need to wind you up. The road is filth today. Well, every day, really. But today feels worse. Last night's rain has transformed every cobbled alley and thoroughfare into a stew of mud ashes and things you try not to identify too closely. Horse droppings, certainly. Bits of old straw. Food scraps, boot prints from people who never learned to wipe their feet. And then there's you, broom in hand, trying to clear a path. You're a crossing sweeper, a noble title for a job no one respects. Your domain is the space between one curb and the next, the sacred ground where ladies in long dresses and men in polished shoes must pass without getting soiled. Your tools are simple, a stiff broom made of bundled twigs, a hopeful tin for coins, and your fastest smile. You start early, even before the carts arrive. You pick a prime spot near the main market entrance. Foot traffic is key. You sweep the sludge aside carefully, not too far, just enough to expose the stone. A clean strip in a sea of grime. A miracle. Then you wait. The first few passers-by ignore you. One nods. Another lifts their skirt and marches straight through the muck, 2 feet away, pretending your path doesn't exist. But finally, a coach stops. A woman in a bonnet steps out, glances down, and sees your work. She walks carefully across the clean stones, never breaking stride. You hold out your tin. She drops in a halfpenny. Success. Crossing sweepers were everywhere in 18th and 19th century cities, especially in places like London, where horse traffic, coal dust, and household waste turned the streets into obstacle courses. Many sweepers were children or elderly folks with nowhere else to go. The job didn't require strength or training, just persistence. Historians still argue whether it was a form of begging or a legitimate service. You decide it's both. By midday, your arms ache, not from the weight of the broom, but from repeating the same motion, clear smile, wait, hope, over and over. A boy tries to take your spot. He looks about 8. No shoes. You shoo him off gently. Territory is everything. Then come the horses. A delivery cart rumbles by its wheels, slinging sludge like malicious catapults. You jump back just in time. Your clean strip gone. The lady from earlier would have sunk to her ankles. You sigh. Start over. Sometimes you hear music in the market, a violinist with a tin cup, or a singer trying to harmonize over the shouting vendors. Their coins come faster. Your job is quieter, less glamorous. No applause for a clean cobblestone. A gentleman passes and says, "Still sweeping. Are you?" as if it's a punchline. You nod. "Still walking. Are you?" He tosses you a coin with a smirk. You don't smile back. Not this time. Some sweepers grow clever. They find spots near government buildings where dignitaries in tall hats pass by daily. Others position themselves near gambling halls or brothels where men stumble out at dawn with no idea what they're stepping in. Your personal trick. You carry a small bag of dry sawdust. Scatter a pinch over particularly soupy patches. It gives the illusion of cleanliness. People love illusions. There's an old man who watches you work from a bench. He nods sometimes. "I used to sweep by the courthouse," he says once. "Made enough to eat. Didn't make enough to stop." You understand that too well. Children mock you occasionally. One pretends to sweep, then throws his broom into a puddle and runs away laughing. You don't chase him. You just pick it up, wring it out, and return to your square of stone. Someone once told you that Queen Victoria passed a sweeper once and nodded in approval. You don't know if it's true, but the idea keeps you going. Near evening, a wedding procession passes. You stand taller. You sweep fast. Smooth, perfect. The bride's slippers are white, impossibly white. She glides across your work like it was laid down just for her. Her father presses a full shilling into your tin. You stare at it, a week's worth of sweeping, one step at a time. You sweep until the sun dips behind the rooftops. The market thins. The stones disappear beneath the evening tide of dirt once again. You lean on your broom and look down at your hands, cracked, calloused black under the nails. But you remember the white slippers and the coin still warm in your pocket. You pack up, hide your broom behind the butcher's wall, and limp home. Your path is never clean, but for a few moments each day, someone's is, and maybe that's enough. You smell it before you see it, a sharp, acrid tang that wafts from open tubs and buckets lining a stone courtyard. There's something familiar about it, something primal. And then it hits you. You're standing in a field of stale urine. Welcome to the fulling yard, where today you'll be helping a fuller, a person who deep cleans and strengthens cloth, especially wool, before it's turned into clothing. Sounds gentle, right? Like laundering linens in a countryside stream. Except you're about to stomp barefoot in wee-soaked fabric for 6 hours straight. The fuller beside you, a broad-shouldered woman with calves like oak trunks, hands you a pair of wooden tongs and a very unconvincing smile. First time she asks, you nod. Good. You'll still have feeling in your toes. She gestures toward a stone vat, half filled with cloth, submerged in a yellow-gray slurry. That's the old batch. Been fermenting 3 days. Should be just ripe now. You don't ask questions. You already know the answer is yes. That's normal. Historically, fulling was essential to the textile industry. Wool, when first woven, is loose and greasy with lanolin. To make it wearable, it has to be cleaned, thickened, and shrunk slightly, all of which requires moisture pressure, and yes, ammonia. Where did they get ammonia? From human urine, collected from chamber pots, left to sit, aged like the worst wine in history. You pull off your shoes, roll up your trousers, and step into the vat. The cloth squishes beneath your feet. Warm, slick, a bit fizzy. The fuller laughs. Give it a stomp, love, not a waltz. You begin stepping up and down, pressing the fabric down into the foul-smelling bath, twisting it slightly with each footfall. It's like squashing snails in jelly. You try not to gag. The yard echoes with similar squelching noises. Other workers move rhythmically, stomping to an unspoken beat. Someone hums. Someone else sneezes violently and blames the smell. By mid-morning, your legs are cramping, your skin itches. Your brain has retreated into a dark corner where shame and scent no longer register. You ask what happens next. We rinse it in clean water, then hang it to dry, then beat it with hammers to fluff it up, she says, unless it rains. Then we drink. That sounds fair. You ask how long she's done this. Since I was 12, she replies. Father said if I was going to ruin my shoes, I might as well get paid for it. She points toward a wall of hanging cloth sheets of off-white and gray, swaying gently in the breeze. That'll be someone's cloak one day, or a priest's robe, or a beggar's blanket. You imagine wearing something that's been through this process. You wonder if the smell ever fades. A fringe detail in some cities, the collection of urine for fulling was so essential that authorities placed public peapots on street corners to encourage donations. In ancient Rome, Emperor Vespasian even taxed urine collection, hence the phrase pecunia non olet, money does not stink. Historians still argue whether this tax was mostly symbolic or a genuine revenue stream. Either way, today you are the stream. You stomp until your calves tremble. The fuller slaps your back once. You'll have legs like columns after a month, she says, and no one will stand next to you at the tavern. Trade-offs. The rinsing comes next. Buckets of cold water dumped unceremoniously over your legs. The shock is welcome until you realize you're also supposed to help carry the dripping fabric across the yard to the drying lines. Wet wool is heavy, like hauling sleeping sheep. You drag, lift, hang, repeat, over and over. By the end of the day, the cloth is hung, the vats are empty, and your feet are pruny in the most unfortunate way. You sit on a stool, legs out, and try not to move. The fuller hands you a crust of bread and a small clay cup. Here, cider. To disinfect the inside of your nose. You take it gratefully. You ask if it's always like this. She smiles. This was a good day. No one slipped. No rats fell in. You try not to imagine what a bad day smells like. As the sun sets, the hanging wool flutters gold in the fading light. It looks clean, soft, almost inviting. You know better, but still you help turn waste into warmth, filth into fabric. You made something useful from something unthinkable. It's disgusting. It's honorable. It's weirdly meditative. And somehow, you'll be back tomorrow. Assuming your toes still exist. The first time you get hit, it's more insulting than painful. A flat wooden paddle slaps your shoulder, sharp, quick, not hard enough to bruise, but enough to jolt you forward a step. The prince behind you giggles. You turn your head slightly. He's already looking away, studying a piece of lint on his velvet cuff, like it holds the secrets of the universe. You don't say anything. You're not allowed to. You're a whipping boy. The concept is simple, absurd, unfair, regal. When a royal child, usually a prince, does something wrong, you take the punishment for him. Not because you did anything wrong, but because he can't be struck. He's royal, untouchable, sacred. You, on the other hand, very much touchable. Your job isn't just to be punished. You're also his companion, his moral barometer, his conscience, with bruises. The logic goes something like this: if the prince watches someone he cares about suffer because of his actions, he'll feel shame, guilt, regret. He'll learn, grow. So far, you're not convinced. You live at the palace, but in a separate wing, not quite servants' quarters, but not royal either. A limbo space with threadbare sheets and leftover porridge. Every morning, you accompany the prince to lessons. You're both taught by the same tutor, Latin history, penmanship, fencing. But if the prince misbehaves, talks back, forgets his lines, you get whipped. Sometimes the tutor doesn't even look at you. He just gestures with the rod and says, 2 strokes, quickly, as if it's arithmetic. There's a rhythm to it now. The prince forgets a date from Roman history. Whap. He spills ink on the scroll. Whap. He mimics the French ambassador. Whap. You don't cry anymore, at least not out loud. One day you ask the tutor if this practice is common. He sniffs. Only for boys, destined to rule. Kings must learn consequences, even if they're not the ones who suffer them. Historians still argue whether whipping boys actually existed, or whether the idea was just a moral fable that got repeated until it felt real. But standing here now, with a welt forming across your ribs, you're pretty sure it's not a myth. Sometimes the prince apologizes, a quick sorry under his breath, usually when no one's looking. Once he even gave you a candied fig. You didn't eat it. He's not cruel exactly, just insulated, like he sees the world through a stained glass window, beautiful and distorted. You start to notice patterns. He acts up more when his father is away, when the queen looks sad, when he's bored, and always when there are guests he wants to impress. Your role extends beyond punishment. You're also a playmate, a sparring partner, a target. You learn to fence together. You take the bruises when he swings wide. You lose every chess game, but always after putting up a decent fight. You begin to understand him, his silences, his sudden laughter, the way he grips his spoon when he's nervous. And sometimes he understands you too. One night, after a particularly harsh lesson, he lied about finishing his composition. You limp back to your quarters and find your pillow fluffed, your favorite cloak folded neatly at the foot of the bed. You never mention it. Neither does he. There's a strange intimacy in shared injustice, a twisted kind of friendship that only exists when one of you bleeds for the other. Then one day, he changes. You're halfway through a Latin recitation when he deliberately drops his stylus, rolls his eyes, and mutters something under his breath. The tutor frowns. 3 strokes. You step forward automatically, but the prince holds up a hand. No, he says. I'll take it. Silence. The tutor blinks. You're not to be struck. Your Grace. I know, the prince replies, but I'm tired of making him flinch. He doesn't get whipped. Of course not. The court intervenes. The chancellor arrives and the incident is buried like a bad debt. But after that, things shift. He tries harder, studies more, speaks softly, starts asking you questions about your family, your favorite foods, your dreams. You hesitate at first, but eventually you answer. You start playing chess, for real. You win once. He laughs. You walk the gardens together. You laugh. But still, sometimes when he falters, when he angers, when he forgets, you get the rod. And each time he flinches more than you do. You hear rumors that the whipping boy position will be phased out soon, that modern thinkers believe it's cruel, ineffective, barbaric, that royal children must face their own discipline, not outsource it. You hope it's true. But until then, you wait. You endure. Not for the crown, not even for the coin, but because someone somewhere decided that empathy could be taught through pain. And tonight, as the prince sneaks you a candied fig, and this time you do eat it, you think maybe, just maybe, they were a little bit right. You're on all fours, in an alley behind a tannery, holding a wooden scoop and peering suspiciously at what could be a clump of dirt or a jackpot. Either way, it's not going to smell like success. Because today, you're a pure finder. It sounds noble, like a quest perhaps involving unicorns or moral clarity, but no. Pure is slang, specifically for dog feces. Your job is to collect it with your hands. Pure finders were once vital to the leather industry. The collected waste, especially from dogs, was rich in enzymes used in the tanning process to soften animal hides. Historians still argue whether this job was mostly done by the desperate or whether some actually made a decent living from it. You'd lean toward the former, especially after this morning's weather. The rain hasn't helped. Everything's soggy. The piles you do find are half dissolved, which means less weight, and you're paid by weight. The bucket you carry bumps against your knee with every step, sloshing slightly. The smell is unmistakable. You've stopped flinching. Your nose has resigned. You start your route near the butchers, looping through streets with high stray populations. You've learned to spot the best corners where dogs sniff, squat, and go. You've even begun to recognize certain regulars, a three-legged hound behind the bakery, a shaggy terrier near the pub. You scoop with precision, ignoring the glances. Some passers-by cross the street. Others mutter under their breath. One man laughs aloud. There goes the turd taxman, he jeers. You curtsy. You're wearing gloves today. That's luxury. There's an art to finding the freshest deposits. Older clumps are lighter, less useful. The tanners want moisture mass and minimum debris. That means you need to get up early and keep your eyes down. Children watch you work. One boy asks if you're collecting treasures. You reply, only the rarest. He follows you for half a block before getting bored and chasing a chicken. Around mid-morning, you deliver your first bucket to the tannery gates. A worker in a leather apron opens the hatch, peers in, and nods. Not bad, he says, weighing it quickly. He drops a few coins in your palm. You glance inside the workshop. Men stand waist-deep in vats of lime and urine, stirring hides with poles. Someone sings. Someone else gags. You ask if they ever collect their own pure. The man laughs. Why would we? That's your job. You continue on. You've heard stories of pure finders finding gold rings, dropped coins, even messages in the muck. But mostly, it's just what it looks like. Brown, warm, and stubbornly real. Still, there's something weirdly meditative about it, like metal detecting, but smellier. You scan the gutters, the base of lampposts, the alley beside the fishmongers, where no one ever sweeps. Your back aches. Your knees crack. You step carefully, not to avoid the waste, but to spot it better. There's camaraderie, too. You pass another pure finder, later in the day, an older woman, with 2 full buckets balanced on a yoke. She nods at you, a silent salute of solidarity. Good haul, you ask. Decent. Found a mess behind the bakery. You both know the baker's dog is a gold mine. In some parts of the city, people have started locking their gates, not for burglars, but to keep pure finders from sneaking into yards and scooping without permission. There was even a court case last year. One man was fined for trespassing while performing essential collection services. He appealed, lost. By late afternoon, your arms are tired. Your bucket's fuller. You've made a second delivery and earned just enough for a hot meal and a cold bath, which you absolutely need. The tannery worker tips his hat as you pass. You keep us soft, he says with a wink. You try to decide if that's praise or just weird. As you trudge home, a woman leans out of her window and wrinkles her nose. You stink. You grin. So does money. You think about how many products rely on you. Gloves, belts, boots, saddles. All polished and perfumed, made respectable by people who wouldn't touch what you do with a 10-foot pole. But without you, they'd be walking in stiff, cracked leather. Their softness, your labor. You arrive at your small flat. You leave your tools outside. You wash your hands in vinegar twice. You eat alone with your boots off and your feet up. The smell lingers, sure. But so does the knowledge that you turned street filth into someone's profit. You're not glamorous. You're not invited to the mayor's dinners. But you walk the city's underbelly like a quiet alchemist, turning waste into wages. And somehow that's enough. You're up before dawn again, so early that the moon still hangs low, pale as milk glass, barely lighting the cobbled streets. The chill clings to your fingertips, and your breath puffs out like tiny ghosts curling upward toward the fading stars. You walk softly, carefully, and with purpose. Today you're a lamp snuffer. Before electricity, before gaslight, even cities were illuminated by oil lamps, hundreds of them, lining every road, alley, and footpath. And every single one had to be lit manually at dusk and snuffed manually at dawn. You didn't get the glamorous evening shift the lamplighters, with their tall poles and their silhouettes haloed in fire, earned more and inspired more romantic poetry. No, you snuff. The city is still, but the work is not. You carry your ladder short and crooked, from age, a metal snuffer shaped like a bell and a pouch of spare wicks in case one flares back to life. First, stop the bridge. 12 lamps stretch across it like sentinels. One by one you climb, reach, and snuff. The flame dies with a soft hiss, a whisper of warm oil and old smoke. You can smell the soot left behind, and it stays on your fingers, even through the gloves. You've learned to enjoy that sound, that little exhale of flame fading into darkness. There's a rhythm to it. Climb, snuff, check, the wick descend. Walk, climb, snuff, check, descend. Repeat. You pass a baker just opening his shutters. He grunts. You nod. Neither of you needs words. You're both part of the city's quiet machinery. The lamps are supposed to be snuffed before full daylight, but sometimes fog lingers, and you move faster, not because you're told to, but because you can't stand seeing your work undone by sunbeams. It feels like someone else finished your sentence. Some say this job is pointless. Let the wind put 'em out, they mutter. But wind is unreliable, and oil's expensive. Every extra hour a lamp burns is coin gone up in smoke. You make sure that doesn't happen. Historians still argue whether lamp snuffers were official city employees or just subcontractors paid per route. Judging by your pay, you suspect the latter. You duck into the East Quarter. The lamps here are shorter, cheaper. Many are cracked or missing their glass panels. You work quicker here. Crime is higher. So is impatience. A man shuffles past you, drunk and humming. You pause, let him pass, then climb again. Snuff. You remember your first week. You were terrified the flame would jump back at you, or that you'd miss and fall. But it's not the fire that gets you. It's the cold metal, the slippery stone, the wear on your knees. You reach lamp number 62, the one on the corner by the old bakery. It always sputters longer, like it knows its time is up and refuses to go quietly. You hold the snuffer over it. Wait. There. Gone. Some lamps were installed by neighborhood subscription. Citizens chipped in to light their own streets. Other lamps were paid for by businesses who wanted their signs visible to night walkers. You pass one outside a hat shop. It's shaped like a swan. Overly fancy. You snuff it with extra care. A child watches you from a window. You pretend not to notice. But when you climb down, he's still staring. You raise the snuffer like a sword. He smiles. For a moment, you're not invisible. You reach the final street of your route just as the sky begins to lighten. Orange threads stretch across the rooftops, and a few lamps have already dimmed on their own low oil maybe. You snuff them anyway for good measure. You believe in rituals. There's an old superstition you once heard. If you leave a lamp burning too long into the morning, it invites sorrow into the neighborhood. You don't believe it. But you snuff every lamp just the same. You finish your route. 84 lamps. 2 refills. No slips. 1 broken pole bracket that you'll report, though no one will fix it until next month. You return the ladder to the shed behind the apothecary. Wipe the soot from your gloves. Stretch your fingers, which now seem permanently curved from the snuffer's grip. You walk home through a city, waking up. Doors creaking open. Boots on stone. The faint clatter of pots. No one thanks you. No one even looks up at the extinguished lamps. That's fine. Your work isn't to be seen. It's to not be noticed. You take the flame folded away and leave behind a quiet street and a slow sunrise. Tomorrow you'll do it again, just before the world remembers what light is. Tonight the fog rolls in early. It curls around your boots as you wait outside the tavern torch, in hand, trying to look both trustworthy and just slightly menacing, like someone who can be hired but not messed with. It's a delicate balance. You're a link boy. In a city without streetlights, you are a human flashlight. Your job escort rich folks from place to place after dark by carrying a torch ahead of them, lighting their way through puddles, thieves, drunks, and the ever-present possibility of stepping in something dead. You wait near the entrance where the laughter is loudest. This particular tavern serves gentlemen, which really just means they're the kind of people who still wear their wigs, even when tipsy. A door swings open. A man stumbles out adjusting his coat with theatrical dignity. "You there," he slurs. "Boy." "Light the way." You nod. "Where to, sir?" He waves vaguely. "Anywhere that doesn't reek of boiled onions." So uphill toward the better homes. You walk ahead, torch raised high. It's made of pitch and rags, wrapped tightly around a wooden pole. It spits sparks sometimes, and if you're not careful, it can drip burning tar onto your boots. "Or your client," the man mutters as he walks. You tune it out. You're listening for footsteps behind you, not his, but others. This part of town has cut purses, muggers. You're not paid to fight them off, but your presence alone is often enough to scare them away. Fire tends to have that effect. Link boys were everywhere in old cities, especially London and Paris, usually young, often poor, sometimes orphans. They were both service providers and a warning. If you needed a link boy, you were important enough to be robbed. But if you didn't hire one, you were asking for a tumble into a ditch, or worse. Historians still argue whether link boys were more protective or predatory. Some led clients into ambushes. Others guided them safely home for years. The line was always thin and always flickering. You prefer to be the reliable kind. You turn a corner, lighting the cobblestones with an amber glow. The fog makes everything feel dreamlike, like you're leading a procession into another world. The man behind you hiccups. Did I marry someone last night?" You say nothing. You're not in the business of answers. Ahead, you spot a figure leaning against a lamppost, unlit, since it's past the snuffer's route. You pause, slightly. The figure shifts, then slinks away. No trouble tonight. You pick up the pace. At the gentleman's gate, you wait as he fumbles with his keys. Eventually, the lock clicks. He turns, sways, and drops a silver coin into your palm. "You didn't let me die. That's worth something." You nod, pocket the coin, and retreat back into the fog. Sometimes the job is that simple. Sometimes not. Your next client is a woman leaving a playhouse. Her shoes are delicate. Her voice is firm. "Keep the flame low," she says. "Too bright, and it draws bats." You oblige. You walk slower this time, adjusting your pace to hers, keeping the flame from flaring. She thanks you at the gate with a wrapped biscuit. You eat it behind a cart, grateful. You hadn't realized how hungry you were. By midnight, you've made 4 trips. Your arms are tired not from the weight of the torch, but from holding it high for so long. Your shoulder burns. Your eyes sting. You pass other link boys on your way back to the square. One has lost his torch entirely. Another boasts about leading a drunk banker into a flower bed. You nod politely and keep walking. There's dignity in staying quiet. Sometimes the torch flickers. Sometimes it goes out entirely in the rain. When that happens, you find shelter under an awning and relight it with flint and tinder if you're lucky. If you're not, you beg a flame from someone else. You've learned that people trust fire. They follow it instinctively. They believe it will keep the monsters away. They rarely realize that you're also in the dark, just one step ahead. A child asks you once if you're afraid. You reply, only when the torch goes out. It's not entirely true, but it's enough. Tonight you walk home with soot on your face, coin in your pocket, and the smell of pitch in your hair. Your hands are black, your boots sticky, and your clothes carry the dampness of fog like a second skin. But the city slept safely while you walked its paths. And tomorrow night you'll light the way again, even if no one remembers your name. By day it's just a teapot, porcelain chipped faintly floral with a crack down the side, and a lid that doesn't quite match. It sits on a shelf like any other piece of kitchenware, humble, harmless. But by night, that teapot becomes a bar, because you, my friend, are running a hush shop, and you are technically a criminal. Prohibition isn't a new idea, not by a long shot. At various points throughout history and in cities across the world, governments have tried to limit or outright ban the sale of alcohol. Gin, especially, has been targeted time and again for its popularity among the poor and its tendency to turn mild-mannered cobblers into belligerent philosophers. But people still want their drink, and someone has to provide it. Tonight, that someone is you. You lift the teapot, check the slosh level inside, and set it gently beside two mismatched cups. No labels, no bottles, nothing that might incriminate you. To the untrained eye, you're serving tea to a neighbor. To the trained eye, that's not tea. Your back room smells faintly of juniper and lemons, an olfactory fingerprint of bathtub gin. You make it yourself. The recipe passed to you from a friend who got it from her uncle, who got it from a man who almost went blind testing the first batch. You've refined it since then. The first customer tonight is an old woman with a cane and a laugh like rusted hinges. She asks for a spoonful, then winks. You pour carefully, top it with actual tea to mask the scent, and slide it across the table. She slips a coin beneath a biscuit and hobbles out. Hush shops, also called gin shops, or illegal taverns, were often run from homes, bakeries, or even tailor shops. They flourished when official pubs were closed or too expensive. Historians still argue whether they contributed to community cohesion or chaos. Most agree they offered both. You keep the curtains drawn, the front door is locked, you only serve people you recognize. But sometimes recognition is a gamble. A man knocks twice, then once. The signal. You let him in. He's jittery, scanning the room like it's going to bite him. You offer him a seat. He declines. Just wants a cup to go. You pour it. He pays. He leaves. Fast. You hope he wasn't a constable. or worse, a competitor. There's no license for this, no permit, just the risk and the ritual. You work in whispers, in codes and glances that say we understand each other. The busiest hours are after midnight. A trio of factory workers comes in shivering from the cold. They sing as they drink badly, but with heart. You let them. They overpay. One leaves behind a glove. You add it to the collection. You once served a poet. He drank silently, scribbled on a napkin, then passed out on your floor. You still have the napkin. It's terrible. But he tipped well. Your neighbors mostly look the other way. Some don't like it, but they know better than to interfere. They may need a favor someday, or a cup. The danger isn't just in the drink. Once a rival hush shop sent someone to inspect your method. He asked too many questions, tried to touch the still. You told him to leave. He returned a week later with a constable in tow. You served them both tea, real tea. They left unsatisfied. You changed the signal after that. You also keep a pot of real tea on hand now, just in case. It's a quiet rebellion, this business. You're not robbing anyone, not hurting anyone, just pouring warmth into cold hands when the law says not to. Still, the risks are real. There's a fine for selling alcohol without a license, a bigger fine for distilling, jail time if someone gets sick, and that's if you're lucky. You wipe the counter down checking for spills. The gin leaves sticky rings if you're not careful. The smell lingers. You burn orange peels on the stove to cover it. Around 3 a.m., a young couple knocks, nervous, whispering. She wants a wedding sip, she says. You pour something smooth. They toast quietly. She cries. He smiles. You give them the drink for free. Not everything has to turn a profit. As dawn threatens to lighten the window edges, you rinse the cups, wipe down the kettle, and pour the last of the gin down the drain, just in case. You've made enough tonight. Barely. Your hands smell like citrus and mischief. Your back aches from crouching. Your heart still races a little every time someone knocks. But no one got sick. No one got caught. And no one left without what they came for. You watch the sky go from black to charcoal to soft gray. Then you put the teapot back on the shelf, just a teapot again, until night falls. The sea air stings your face even before the shouting starts. You've barely stepped aboard the ship, and already the deck is vibrating with noise orders barked in a dozen dialects, the thud of barrels being rolled into the hold, the slap of ropes being hauled tight. Somewhere, someone is singing. Off key. You are a powder monkey. You're also 12 years old, maybe younger. It's hard to keep track. In the grand theater of 18th century naval warfare, you are a minor character with an extremely dangerous job ferrying gunpowder from the ship's magazine to the cannon crews during battle, quickly, quietly, while being shot at. It's a job made for the small, the fast, and the expendable. You wear no shoes, no hat, just a canvas shirt and breeches too big for your legs. The bosun, everyone calls him bosun, points you toward the magazine with a grunt. It's deep in the belly of the ship, past rows of hammocks and barrels of salt pork. You go below. The magazine is a small, dark chamber lined with powder kegs and tension. No open flames are allowed here. No iron nails on boots. Even your lantern is shuttered tight. One spark could turn the entire ship into a floating firework. You're handed a cartridge, a canvas bag filled with carefully measured gunpowder. You tuck it into a leather satchel and scramble back up the narrow stairs through the crowded deck to the cannon crew. They grab it without looking at you. Load. Fire. The ship jerks sideways with the force. Your ears ring. You go back for another. This is your whole world now. The back and forth rhythm of running between fire and fear. In peacetime, you're little more than a cabin boy. You swab the deck clean, the mess, polish the officers' boots. But when the cannons roar, you become vital. Every second counts. Every step you take might be the one that decides whether a cannon fires or doesn't. You're not allowed to speak to officers. You're barely allowed to speak at all. But the cook slips you an extra piece of bread once, and that's as good as a speech. Historians still argue whether powder monkeys were truly considered crew or more like cargo. There were no official ranks for children like you, just names often forgotten once the battle was over. The ship rocks harder now. There's shouting. You hear someone scream port side, and a moment later the air fills with splinters and smoke. You duck. You don't stop running. You deliver another cartridge, then another. Your hands are black from soot. Your legs ache. Your lungs burn from the smoke. But you keep going, because stopping isn't an option. During one trip you slip, not far, just enough to scrape your knee and send the cartridge rolling across the deck. A sailor grabs it before it hits anything hot. He snarls, but doesn't hit you. You're lucky. You start tying the satchel tighter. Later, someone calls you Powder Rat. It's not kind, but it's familiar. Nicknames mean they've seen you, remembered you. That's something. When the battle ends, hours later, maybe longer, you collapse against a barrel heart, hammering legs, shaking. You're alive. You did your job, and now you wait. There's no medal, no speech, just a bucket of water to wash your face and a slice of hard tack if you're lucky. You see other boys' faces just as smudged, eyes just as wide. One lost a toe. Another still hasn't spoken. You don't ask questions. You sleep in a hammock, strung between two beams. It creaks with every sway of the ship. You keep your satchel close just in case they call for battle stations again. You dream of silence, but even in sleep your ears echo with cannon fire. In the morning, you scrub the deck with sand and seawater. You polish brass fittings until your knuckles bleed. Someone whistles a tune you hate. You don't ask for them to stop. You pass the magazine on your way to the galley. You glance inside. Kegs still stacked. Satchels still full. A faint whiff of powder hangs in the air. You'll be back. Later, the bosun claps your shoulder. Hard. Didn't die, he says. Good. You nod. You didn't die. That's the only measure of success here. You stare at the sea, endless gray, restless. You imagine walking away, but there's nowhere to walk. You're a powder monkey, small, fast, invisible, and somehow essential. You wake up in the dark again to a knock on your door. 3 raps, sharp, intentional. It's time. You don't dress. You're already wearing the same shirt from yesterday and the day before that. You just grab your notebook bound in worn leather, filled with columns of names, numbers, and hours, and step into the street. You are the human alarm clock, also called a waker, or if you're feeling generous, a living timepiece. Unlike the knocker-upper, who uses sticks and stones to wake people with noise, your method is more direct. You knock, you speak, you wait, you remember, and you never get it wrong. You walk briskly, flipping to the appropriate page. Monday, 4:30 a.m. 6 names, 1 new entry. You mutter each aloud as you pass the gas lamps, keeping the rhythm like a mantra. The first client is a baker's apprentice. You tap her window once softly and say, "Mary, it's time." That's it. No yelling, no fuss. She stirs like always. You move on. The second house, 2 floors above the butcher's, belongs to a man who works the trains. You call his name gently, but with insistence. A few seconds pass. Then a grunt. Confirmation, it's not glamorous, but it's reliable. You remember everything. Who needs waking when? Who's away visiting family? Who requested an earlier call because of a new shift? You update the notebook daily. No one else could make sense of your notes, but to you, they're sacred. Historians still argue whether human alarm clocks were widespread or only a product of tight-knit communities. But here in this weather-stained part of the city, you are indispensable. You charge by the week, a few coppers at a time. Some clients pay with eggs or bread or nothing at all. You keep them anyway. You wake the old man at number 42 with a whispered, "Time, sir." He doesn't reply. He hasn't in months, but his light flickers on every morning. You think it comforts him to know someone remembers. You pass children walking to early apprenticeships. They nod to you half asleep. One day, they'll hire you too. At number 19, a new name. You hesitate. New clients make you nervous. They haven't learned the system. They might expect something else. You knock, softly. "Miss Clara," you say. Nothing. You try again. A pause. Then a voice, dry with sleep. "Yes. Thank you." You smile. Back home, your walls are covered with old calendars and marked schedules. Your notebook rests beside your pillow. You set your body like a clock sleep light wake before the bells walk before the rest. Someone once offered you a wind-up clock. You declined. "What if it breaks you?" said. They didn't argue. One night it snows, thick and fast. You wrap your coat tighter and trudge through the silence. No one sees you, but you knock anyway. "Time John, time Annie." You never miss a name, not once. There's a kind of intimacy in it, a strange closeness. You speak to people at their most vulnerable before they're dressed, before they've faced the day. You are the voice before the world begins. A boy once asked if you liked the job. You said, I like being remembered. There's no fame here, no reward. But sometimes when you walk through the market in the afternoon, someone waves, someone smiles, someone says, you kept me from losing my job this week. You nod. You never stop moving. You can't afford to. If you oversleep, the chain breaks. If you forget a name, someone misses a shift. It's not just about money. It's about trust. You're not loud like the criers. You're not messy like the pure finders. You're just exactly on time. And in a world where clocks are rare and mornings are cruel, that makes you important. Eventually, of course, you'll be replaced. Spring-loaded alarms, wind-up wonders, factory whistles loud enough to shake the rooftops. But not yet. For now, you are the tick between night and day. And that tick is steady. She stands at the corner with a basket on each hip. One is filled with dried leaves neatly bundled. The other overflows with glass jars, corked and trembling slightly with every step. Her apron is stained not with dirt, but with petals, oils powder. You've just met an herb wife, and tonight you're helping her hawk medicine gossip and something that might be witchcraft, but only if you ask the wrong priest. Herb wives were the city's unofficial pharmacists, the street corner apothecaries, for people who couldn't afford the fancy chemist shops or didn't trust them. They learned from mothers, from midwives, from whispered recipes scribbled in the margins of hymn books. And they knew things. Your teacher, her name's Ruth, moves with the confidence of someone who's helped more babies be born than most doctors, and buried fewer of them too. She stops at her usual spot just down from the fishmonger and directly across from the church steps. It's a risky placement. Father Gregory hates me, she says, setting down her baskets. Says I brew potions. You glance at a jar of slippery green goo. Do you? You ask. She winks. Depends on who's asking. Business starts quickly. A woman approaches, whispering about a cough that won't go away. Ruth hands her a bundle of horehound and licorice root. Another woman wants help sleeping. That's lavender chamomile, a pinch of valerian. Ruth doesn't measure. She knows. You're there to fetch water, carry baskets, and restock jars when they run low. You're also there to watch and learn, because being an herb wife isn't just about the plants. It's about knowing the people. That one there, Ruth whispers, gesturing with her chin, asks for wound salve once a week. No bruises on her, but her sister's got a limp. You nod. Later, a man approaches with coin in hand. Ruth squints. He wants a love tonic, she mutters. He wants her to stop leaving. You ask what she gives him. Rose water, with a bit of honey, harmless. Will it work? She shrugs. Might sweeten his breath. It's a strange business straddling medicine and myth. Ruth swears by some herbs, laughs at others. She scoffs at bleeding and mercury, but uses foxglove like it's holy. You ask how she knows what's real. I watch, she says. Real things take time. Fake ones ask for miracles. There's danger here, too. A woman across the street hisses witch under her breath. A constable strolls by too slowly. Ruth smiles at both and sells a pouch of dried elderberry to a coughing boy. You keep a ledger now, scribbling quickly, names, remedies, hints. But the law looms. Herb wives have always walked a tightrope. Too helpful, and they're praised. Too successful, and they're accused. Historians still argue whether most of them were healers or hustlers, or whether the distinction mattered at all. You stop asking that question after Ruth helps a woman with a breech birth, using nothing but warm oil, whispered prayers, and hands steadier than yours will ever be. That night, she cries. Quietly. In the back room, you pretend not to hear. Tomorrow she'll sell rue to ward off nightmares and fennel for bellyaches. She'll laugh. She'll flirt with the butcher. She'll scowl at Father Gregory and wave to children. But tonight she's just tired. You clean the jars, fold the cloths, wrap up the leftover salves and tinctures. The room smells of sage and vinegar, sweet and sharp. You're learning the plants now by sight, by scent, by the way they crumble in your hands. You ask Ruth if she's ever been wrong. Oh, plenty, she says. But I've also been right when no one else dared try. You believe her. You sleep in a cot near the baskets. You dream of green fields of bruised knees, healing of women in aprons, whispering names of plants like spells. In the morning you wake to her brewing something bitter. For the mayor's maid, she says, the rich get sick too. You smile. You're not a doctor, not a priest, not a miracle worker, but maybe, just maybe you're an herb wife in training. And in a city that forgets to care for its own, maybe that's a kind of magic too. You spot him before he spots you, a stooped figure sitting by the well, a small leather pouch swinging gently from his neck. It's not filled with coins. It's filled with toads. Today you're shadowing a toad doctor. Yes, really. In a world before penicillin and decent hand washing, people were willing to believe in almost anything. And in some parts of the city, especially the poorer alleys, where real doctors never came, the toad doctor was legend. He notices you watching and pats the stone beside him. You sit, expecting miracles, he rasps, just hoping to learn you reply. He smiles a crooked, gap-toothed thing that looks like it's been traded for more practical uses over the years. Then, let's begin. His kit is simple. The pouch with the toad, a pocket full of herbs, and a book so worn it looks more like a bundle of string than anything literary. He swears by it. You swear it's half blank. A woman approaches, cradling a boy with swollen glands along his neck. The boy's eyes are glassy, his breathing raspy. Scrofula, they call it the king's evil. You glance around. There's no crown in sight. The toad doctor gets to work. He opens the pouch and gently removes a live toad, its belly-pale legs twitching lazily in the air. He ties it in a small cloth and hangs it around the boy's neck like a necklace. You blink. That's it. Give it a day, he says. The toad takes on the illness, draws it out. You wait for laughter, sarcasm, disbelief. But the mother thanks him with tears in her eyes. She presses 2 coins into his palm and walks away, boy and toad, swinging softly beneath his chin. Toad doctors were once surprisingly common in parts of England, especially rural towns and urban slums. Their methods were based in folk medicine, not science. The idea was that the toad, considered a creature of the earth and damp, could absorb bad humors. Historians still argue whether the practice was purely symbolic, placebo-based, or a misunderstanding of how skin infections worked. The doctor shrugs off the doubt. Most healing, he tells you, happens in the mind first. You help him pack his things. The second toad in the pouch stirs, blinking slowly, unbothered. It will get its turn soon enough. Your next patient is a man with a chronic limp. He doesn't want a toad. He wants a wart cure. The doctor pulls out a potato, slices it once, and rubs the cut side on the wart. Then he throws the potato into the street. It'll rot, and the wart will go with it. You raise an eyebrow. Or it won't, he adds, but the man believes it will. That's the important part. You pass a constable who eyes you both warily. The doctor smiles too wide. You arresting me today, or waiting for me to cure someone important? The constable mutters something about quacks and walks on. You ask if he's ever been arrested. Twice, he says. Once for healing someone too slowly, once for doing it too quickly. You don't ask for details. By midday, you've seen a parade of ailments, headaches, back pain, shingles, heartbreak. For the last one, he offers a spoonful of honey and a whispered poem. She just needed someone to see her, he says after she leaves. You start to notice his rituals, the way he cradles the toads gently, the way he never promises a cure, only relief, the way he listens more than most. You don't believe all of this, you say. No, he replies. But I believe in it. There's a difference. Your last patient is a child who won't speak. The mother says it's been weak. The doctor hands the child a pebble, tells her to hold it under her tongue, then hums a lullaby from his own childhood, soft, low, vaguely sad. The child hums back. The mother cries. No toads required. You pack up for the day. The doctor lets you carry the pouch. It's surprisingly warm. You can feel the creature inside breathing, just as alive as everything else. You walk in silence. He stops at a small shrine, leaves a coin, and tips his hat. To the gods of things we don't understand, he says. At his door, he hands you the book. The string barely holds it together. Inside, scribbles drawings of toads, dried flowers, a sketch of a laughing boy holding a frog. Keep it, he says. Someone has to. You ask if you're a toad doctor now. He chuckles. You're a listener. That's rarer. That night you open the book again. You press the pages flat and read strange names of herbs, old wives' tales and notes in 3 different hands. You feel the pulse of centuries in those pages. You'll never wear a white coat. You'll never hold a stethoscope. But you've seen healing happen, messy, improbable, real. And tomorrow, when Someone asks if you know anyone who can help. You just might nod. You might even bring a toad. Now the streets are quiet again. The lamps are dark. The carts have stopped rattling. The bells have long since chimed their final hour. And all those voices from the past, the rat catchers, the sweepers, the boys who ran between cannons, the women who mixed herbs and whispered comfort, they settle like dust in an old room, forgotten by history books, perhaps, but not forgotten here. You can almost hear their footsteps, still echoing on the stones, light, heavy, fast limping, all different, all necessary. They were the pulse of the city, long before electricity hummed or engines roared. They moved silently, stubbornly, into mornings that didn't thank them. Their jobs didn't come with titles or praise, but they mattered. Just as much as the kings and the councils, maybe more. And now you've walked beside them, glimpsed their world, felt the weight of their buckets, the sting of their bruises, the warmth of their small triumphs. So, as you rest your head, know this: somewhere in the folds of history, a place was made for the ones no one remembers, and tonight that place was yours to visit. Sleep gently now. Let the night be quiet. Let the city rest. Let the lamps stay dark. You've done enough walking for one evening.